KCSM and KCSM HD1, San Mateo, San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose at 91.1 FM, in Sonoma at 90.7 FM, and live on the web at kcsm.org, the Bay Area's jazz station.
Better believe that it's a time for walking, no time for talking. Grab the walking shoes that hang in your closet and go out for a walk in the air. Breathe it all in and be glad to be there. Smell the greenness, out goes the meanness. Get your walking shoes and let them deposit you in skies free of trouble and care. Hey, look around, see the sun everywhere, just fly. When you feel like you're starting to cry, just get out and get under that sky all blue, and you will find it's true. You're able to do anything that you ever could want to do, so don't be gloomy, just listen to me. Bask in the glow of days that know no blues. You can't lose if you'll only use your walking shoes. Fly. When you feel like you're starting to cry, just get out and get under that sky all blue, and you will find it's true. You're able to do anything that you ever could want to do, so don't be gloomy, just listen to me. Bask in the glow of days that know no blues. You can't lose if you'll only use your walking shoes. Walking shoes.
I look at you and suddenly something in your eyes I see soon begins bewitching me. It's that old devil moon that you stole from the skies. It's that old devil moon in your eyes. You and your glance make this romance too hot to handle. Stars in the night blazing their light can't hold a candle to your razzle dazzle. You've got me flying high and wide on a magic carpet ride full of butterflies inside. I want to cry, want to croon, want to laugh like a loon. It's that old devil moon in your eyes. Just when I think that I'm free as a dove, old devil moon deep in your eyes blinds me with love. that old devil moon that you stole from the skies. It's that old devil moon, it's that old devil moon in your eyes. Just when I think that I'm free as a dove, old devil moon deep in your eyes blinds me with love. Old devil moon deep in your eyes blinds me with love.
Hi, I'm Noel Jukes, and you're listening to KCSM FM 91, the Bay Area's jazz station.
Where you at? Where's your natural habitat? Tell me where you at. I wanna go there. Where's the place? Which direction should I face? Where's the place? I wanna go there. I was doing fine, then I heard you call. I've been searching everywhere and I can't find you nowhere at all. So where you at? Where's your natural habitat? Tell me before I flip my hat. I wanna go there. What became of you? Are you in Peru? Call me when you get to Lima. Do you look the same? Is your hair the same? Are you still with Louis Prima? Did you go to Spain? Did you take a train? Are you traveling incognito? Did you rent a van driving to Japan? Say hello to Hirohito. I was doing fine, then I heard you call. I've been searching everywhere and I can't find you nowhere at all. So where you at? Where's your natural habitat? Tell me before I flip my hat. I wanna go there. I wanna go there.
Oh, where you at? The one and only Dave Frishberg here at Jazz 91 KCSM with just a beautiful piece. Where You At? That's the name of the album on Sterling Records going back to 1991. And just a fantastic date that he did that was recorded by Radio France in Paris, which was very cool, with Turk Mauro on the baritone saxophone, Glenn Ferris on the trombone, and Michael Gaudry on the bass, the great Dave Frishberg. And then we heard from Bob Dorough and his very excellent album, Devil May Care. But we heard Old Devil Moon, and this is just a classic for the great Bob Dorough. This one done for the Bethlehem record label back in 1956. And then we heard from the one and only Bobby Troup, an excellent version of Jerry Mulligan's Walking Shoes, and he put lyrics to it, and just a fantastic piece from his album, The Feeling of Jazz, one of the great songwriters. And we chose all these songs based on the wonderful selections that Sherri Roberts is going to be performing this coming Saturday, March the 7th at 3 p.m. over at Harmony Hall at the First Congregational Church of Palo Alto. And it's a great program that is called I'm Hip. And, well, there's nobody hipper than Sherri Roberts, so she's here today. Sherri, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Chuy, and it's so wonderful to see you again. It's been a while, and also I'm just so inspired hearing these selections that you played leading up to this, because all those guys and what they wrote and how they sang were really the inspiration for putting my show together, and it's just great hearing their very unique hipness.
Well, I think it's great, and I think that it's great that you're doing this, because this is a tribute to the Hep-Cat Singer Songwriters of Jazz, Matt Dennis, Bobby Troup, Dave Frishberg, Bob Dorough, and these are folks that really just wrote some incredible standards that are sung today, and it really is showing a lot of the great wit that they had, and also this incredible playful language that they added to these wonderful lyrics that they wrote. What inspired you, though, to do this?
Well, if I can be perfectly frank, I had a gig coming up at Keys Jazz Bistro last spring, back in May, and I'm always trying to think, well, how do I get people in the door? Because people pay good money to go out, and they want to be entertained, and at the same time as musicians, we need to do what we love. At the same time, we got to hope that other people love what we do. And I was looking at my existing repertoire, which I've had over the years, and I started looking at songs that I have sung, a few that I've recorded, that came out of a certain time period with a certain panache, a certain hipness. And I had to ask myself, why do I love these songs? And what is it about them? And initially, the songs were by people like Bob Dorough and Dave Frishberg, Bobby Troup. And I looked at what they were doing, and it was very much a certain snapshot of a certain period of time. And what they were doing was coming out of a change in the jazz world, in the jazz instrumental world, which was when Bebop sort of took over from the swing era. And that inspired the Beat generation, who took a lot of their a lot of the things they did, the feeling for improvisation, the lingo of musicians like Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker. A lot of the Beats started wearing berets and goatees, and who was the person who started that but Dizzy himself? So they were really modeling themselves after the bebop innovators. And out of this sort of brew of cultural upheaval with the hip bebop harmonies and improvisations, and the Beat generation coming up with new lingo, like words like "get your kicks" and and the very word like "I'm hip." it's gas, any of this kind of lingo lent itself to the songwriters that were working at that time to start incorporating the bebop elements with this kind of new edgy lingo. And those are the songs that started emerging from the likes of Bobby Troup, Matt Dennis, and 5, 6, 7 years later, Bob Dorough and Dave Frishberg. And I thought, well, here's a show. I can just pay tribute to all these guys and find the way that they tied themselves together with these different, very, in the moment influences in their lives that I think still impacts us today. So
dig that. But it was a hipster's Tin Pan Alley.
Yes.
Because, these were cats that were writing these songs, and there was a young generation that was embracing them. This was young people's music when they first came out, because people were trying to be hip, and they were trying to emulate all those, folks that you mentioned, Dizzy Gillespie, all these excellent influencers, we would call today, But I think that one of the things that was really great was that, that there was, this independent recording movement that allowed them to be able to put these things out and put them out in jukeboxes so they could be enjoyed by folks, And a part of it was that it wasn't like, when you look at a guy like, say, let's take Bobby Troup. Bobby Troup perhaps had one of the biggest hits of all these guys with Route 66. And, and it was Nat King Cole singing these songs.
Yes, it was.
But after he wrote these songs, what was he doing? He was just playing gigs.
Exactly. And that's kind of the premise of this show, is that all these people had some very famous people recording their songs. And Route 66, of course, kind of trumps everything. That was the biggest hit of any of these, artists. But, yeah, Bobby motored west from Pennsylvania after World War II, and he met Nat King Cole 6 days after he arrived. And because he had a hit before the war, which was Daddy, he had residuals, and he also had a certain cachet where he was able to be introduced to Nat Cole, who was playing a residency in L.A., and that's when he pitched Route 66 to Nat King Cole. But after he had that success, yes, he just had to be a working musician, entertainer around the Los Angeles area. He was playing piano bars. He was on local television. He, did radio gigs. And all these people that I'm paying tribute to, they were all working musicians who had famous people record their songs, but then they themselves would just go around the country or, stationed in LA and sit down at the piano, maybe by themselves, maybe with a little jazz trio behind them, and they'd sing their own songs. And they had a very, very hip audience that were, as you say, young, engaged, sophisticated, understood jazz, understood clever lyrics, and like to have a little cocktail in hand, too. So,
well, right now we're speaking with one and only Sherri Roberts, one of our wonderful vocalists here in the Bay Area. She's got a great show happening this Saturday, March 7th at 3 p.m. over at Harmony Hall at the First Congregational Church of Palo Alto. This is being put on by the Palo Alto Jazz Alliance. And if you want to get tickets, you can do that online at PA Jazz Alliance. That's pajazzalliance.org. She's going to have pianist David Udolph with her, as well as Chris Amberger on the bass and Akira Tana on the drums. It's going to be a great show, folks. And well, it's titled I'm Hip, paying tribute to the Hep-Cats, singer-songwriters of jazz. And right now, we are going to listen to Sherri doing a great interpretation here of a wonderful tune by Bob Dorough, I've Got Just About Everything.
Just about everything I need to make this life I lead an enjoyable thing. I've got bluebirds and posies and robins and roses trees, all kinds of flowers that bloom, all kinds of birds that sing. I've got just about everything I want to make this earth I walk a miraculous place. I've got fresh air and sunshine and mountains and make wine and what is really a boon. I like the human race when I say just about everything. I think I must admit that one thing I need is missing. I'm not complaining with or without it, I've still got what I've got. But you could better my lot with some of your hugging and kissing. That's what is missing. Just say those words that I long to hear you say, and then my life will be complete and full to the top. And I'll share all my treasures, my riches and pleasures, just making the two of us one. That's all that need be done. Just say you'll be my own, my one and only one. Then I can say I've got everything I need. I've got just about everything it takes to set the scene and make it a marvelous bit. I've got barrels of laughter and hope ever after. And though I don't like to boast, shucks baby, I got it. I've got just about everything there is to make this hers, and here's a terrific affair. I've got dewdrops and oceans and all kinds of notions, and since I dig you the most, I've got the urge to share. Though I have just about everything, I know for sure by now I really need what's lacking. No doubt about it, living without it, I might turn out a slob. At best, remain just a blob. So darling, now won't you supply it? Come on, let's try it. I could go on just as I am, year after year, but with that one thing more, I know I'll reach the divine. That's to have you and hold you. Oh, now that I've told you, just please make a positive sign, saying that you'll be mine, that I'll have everything. Oh, how my heart will sing. Then I can say I've got everything I need. Just about everything. And from that look you gave, I know I'll get what's missing. Hot dicky dicky, I feel so wiggy, I could fly to the moon, compose a beautiful tune to show you how much I adore you and implore you. Just say those words that I long to hear you say, and then my life will be complete and full to the top. And I'll share all my treasures, my riches and my pleasures, just making the two of us one. That's all that need be done. Just say you'll be my own, my one and only one. Then I can say I've got everything I need. Then we'll have everything. Oh, how my heart will swing. Then I can say I've got everything I need. You're all I need.
Oh, good to the last drop. That is just a great version of a beautiful song. I've got just about everything, written by Bob Dorough and an incredible band. Mark Saskin was at the piano, Harvey Swartz, now Harvey S. on the bass. The legendary Danny Gottlieb was on the drums. Chris Potter was on the tenor sax with a great string section on some selections. My old friend Memo Azevedo was there on percussion, and it's just great. This one was on Brownstone Records, and I was just flashing back, man. I remember when Brownstone was one of the hot independent labels, and it was so great. But that's a great song, Sherri, and it really, in a way, is a wonderful look at your career and back when you were your first debut recording, man.
Well, that was the second, but yeah, the first one was on Brownstone too. But yeah, Bob Dorough again. Having as Chris Cortez, who stepped in here before we got started, said, I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole when I started putting different songs together for the show, and I thought, well, I should. Some were in my repertoire, and some I thought, I'd really like to learn this one. I've always wanted to learn this one. And then I just started reading or listening to, more of these artists and learning things that I really didn't know going into it. And one thing I learned of Bob Dorough in this song is, first of all, just so everyone's clear, he wrote the lyrics as well as the music for this. Now, there are a number of songs where Bob wrote music but didn't write the lyrics, or let's not forget Matt Dennis, who's also being paid tribute to. There's some songs where he wrote the lyrics and he didn't, but Bob Dorough did write the lyrics to this, and he considered it one of the best songs he ever wrote, which I didn't know. That was his personal favorite of all the songs he wrote. And he wrote it for his wife at the time and the mother of his daughter. So it's a love song. And it's great that he thought it was one of his best. And I've always loved it. So it's just affirmation.
Oh, that is beautiful, beautiful. Sherri Roberts, our guest this afternoon, who performs this coming Saturday over at Harmony Hall at the First Congregational Church of Palo Alto at 3 p.m. hit time, and it definitely is going to be a wonderful tribute to some great songwriters that I think a lot of you out there know, and really it's a labor of love because as Sherri was saying, she went down a rabbit hole. But I think that sometimes what really amazes me about vocalists like you and Sherri is the ability to be able to memorize these lyrics, and particularly these are lyrics that it's not the moon in June goes like in tune.
No.
It's these are songs that have got a lot of great syncopation. They've got little twists and turns, and and you gotta like say it just right. How is it for you? Is there a process for you to learn lyrics so that you don't have to read them on stage?
Well, a lot of repetition. You just like doing it over and over and over again until the brain syncs up with the content of what you're trying to say. I do have a slight historical advantage in that I came up in theater and had to memorize lines for theater when I was in college and that kind of thing. So there was a part of my brain that's probably wired to do this. And certainly when I've done the show, I do get a lot of comments like, I can't believe you know all those lyrics. Because these songs in particular are very dense lyrically. And many of them have multiple verses. I've got just about everything, which you just heard is probably the extreme level of that, because there are 2.5 full verses of nonstop lyrics. And as you say, they're really clever, they're really witty, but there's a part of the brain that just has to stay on top of it when you're going through this. But there's also a joy in being able to just express yourself through these wonderful ideas that even as I'm singing them, I just find so much pleasure in, because I couldn't come up. I mean, I do try to occasionally write lyrics. I couldn't come up with this stuff, It's just, it's kind of an amazing thing, both for Dorough. Bobby Troup wrote so many of his own lyrics, and of course Dave Frishberg, who was a master lyricist. And it needs to be said that Frishberg and Bobby Troup often wrote songs for other people, like you opened with a song that Bobby Troup wrote lyrics to. He wrote the lyrics to Girl Talk for Hefty, which, some people think is a little sexist right now, but but it was a very good song at its time. And Dave Frishberg went on to write lyrics for Alan Broadbent and Johnny Mandel and some other composers as well. So they were very talented lyricists. But there's a beauty to what they do that as a singer, I have to appreciate. And as a listener, I just think the more you catch as these phrases kind of speed by, the more, your brain just goes, aha, that was funny, that was good, that was,
Yeah.
So it's just a kind of a 1-2 punch that keeps delivering throughout the course of an entire song. And
No, I think it's totally great. But one of the things too, Sherri, and is perhaps this is also drawing from your theatrical background, is that, you just don't sing the songs. You also are interspersing stories and setting up, the song content and, how these pieces, have kind of manifested themselves. Tell us, take us to the stage for a minute, and how does this show unfold?
Well, it starts with a Matt Dennis tune and moves on to, well, I didn't even mention Tommy Wolfe. I kind of stick a little Tommy Wolfe in there. Tommy Wolfe was also a contemporary of these other writers, but he was in St. Louis and not quite in the coastal milieu that these other people were. But he wrote with a wonderful lyricist by the name of Fran Landesman. And Fran, turns out, also wrote lyrics for Bob Dorough. She wrote a song with Bob Dorough called Nothing Like You, which Miles Davis put on his album The Sorcerer. And she wrote a song with Bob Dorough that Bob Parlocha used to have a Friday night. Bob Parlocha, for your younger listeners, was a wonderful disc jockey on K-Jazz who had a dinner jazz show, but on Friday nights he always played a theme song of Small Day Tomorrow because the weekend was coming. Well, that was a Bob Dorough, Fran Landesman composition. But as far as how my own show unfolds, I try to give the setting of the fact of what I addressed earlier, that this is these seeds of inspiration came from Bebop and the Beat Generation. And I talk about the individual songwriters and what their for example, Bob Dorough and Dave Frishberg were close friends with Blossom Dearie. And they all met in Paris because Blossom had lived in Paris. Bob Dorough had done gigs in Paris. And Dave Frishberg, as you said off-air, Chuy, Dave Frishberg was this wonderful sideman, piano player who played with just all these jazz greats who would tour Europe and go through Paris.
Right.
So the three of them met in Paris and became very close friends. And when they got back to the States, this friendship lasted a lifetime. And Dave Frishberg and Bob Dorough, when they were back in the States in the early 60s, wrote a song together, one of the only songs they ever wrote together, called I'm Hip, which is the name I sort of give this show. And who made that famous? But Blossom Dearie.
That's right.
So there are all these different connections, and I try my best to weave them together while I'm singing these songs to give people a taste of how all these songwriters actually influenced not only each other, but future generations of songwriters, as you were talking about earlier, Chuy. Dave Frishberg, he had a way of writing songs that were about mundane, ordinary things that he could make either really beautiful or really funny. And those would be songs like My Attorney Bernie, or, more searing things like Blizzard of Lies, or writing songs about baseball players' names and things.
Right.
And he kind of set an example that younger jazz artists Jay Leonhardt being one of them, and then you had mentioned Dave.
Oh, Dave Tull, yeah.
Yeah. That they started realizing, well, I can kind of write a song with a little bit of a jazz riff, but then also maybe I'll talk about driving down the LA freeway and being stuck in traffic, or, and so he kind of inspired a whole new way to write lyrics for a song with a jazz feeling. And
totally true.
Yeah. So anyway, I try to refer to all this, but at the same time bring the music forward. And
but I think it's fascinating,
and
I think people are really going to, appreciate this on Saturday, March 7th, over at Harmony Hall, and we are going to be giving away some tickets to this show. So hey, do stay tuned. But it's really going to be a good one. But we're going to go into a piece now that also became quite famous by Nat King Cole, by Bobby Troup. You're Looking at Me. Set this one up for us.
Yeah, so I first heard this, the version Nat Cole sang, and I really fell in love with it. And I sang it on gigs for a while as a walking ballad, as Nat did himself and as Bobby wrote it. And when I was about to do this recording with Harvey Swartz, that became titled The Sky Could Send You, I wanted this to be on the recording. And Harvey, as you had also referred to off air, was a pretty good Latin player. He's delved pretty deeply into Afro-Cuban, Brazilian, and he suggested that we incorporate a certain amount of Latin flavor to this album. It's not a straight Latin album, but it has elements of it. And when I turned this tune over to him, he said, well, instead of a walking ballad, why don't we do it in 3/4? Why don't we insert these little, Latin feel here and there? And then he got Phil Woods to play on it. So it's really one of my favorite songs. I really like how we do it. Of course, I love how Nat Cole sings it, but I really like this whole version of a Latin 3/4 feel to this tune.
Oh, the wonderful Sherri Roberts.
And it's called You're Looking at Me.
Our guest this afternoon. And again, if you want tickets for this wonderful event this Saturday, March the 7th, check out PA Jazz Alliance. That's Palo Alto Jazz Alliance.org. And with that, here's You're Looking at Me.
So misunderstand things. You're looking at me. Who was so sure of her conquest, sure as a human could be, who wound up losing the contest. You're looking at me. You're looking at me. Where is that girl who was certain her charms couldn't fail? Where is that girl who believed every word of this ridiculous tale? Who was so childishly flattered, thought she'd swept him off his feet? Who woke to find her dream shattered? Might I repeat for you? Needn't strain your eyes to see what I want you to see. That's right. You're looking at me. ridiculous tale. Who was so childishly flattered, thought she'd swept him off his feet. Who woke to find her dream shattered. Might I repeat for you? Needn't strain your eyes to see what I want you to see. That's right, you're looking at me. Where is that girl? Where is that girl? You're looking at me. You're looking at me. Where is that girl? You're looking at me. You're looking at me. You're looking right at me. You're looking at me. You're looking at
What a beautiful, beautiful version of a great song. You're Looking at Me. That one performed by our guest this afternoon, Sherri Roberts. This is from Sherri's album, The Sky Could Send You, and it's just gorgeous. And this is a fantastic version that includes two great artists of jazz, Phil Woods on the saxophone, Lou Soloff on the trumpet, and then a whole bunch of other great folks that were part of this, including Sherri's partner, David Udolph at the piano, Harvey S. on the bass once again, and just so many others. It just really is a fantastic version of that song, Sherri. I commend you, man. You've made some great records over the years.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of what it is when you dig in. But, you know, the deal about it, Sherri, is it has been a while since you've put a record out.
Yeah.
What's the difficulties in really, you know, getting it together, get out and put out a record? Because the game has changed so much, man.
I know. Well, I'm about to find out in a way. Yeah, we're halfway, not even halfway. I'll call it a third of the way through a project of a Chet Baker project.
Wow.
That when Harvey S. was in town September. It was September. He was here with Alan Broadbent and at Piedmont Piano, and whenever he's in town, we grab him and do a trio gig at Key's Jazz Bistro.
Cool.
And so he did that gig with us, and then we had like one day before he left and Akira left for Japan, and we got him into the studio and we laid down a few tracks for this Chet Baker project, which I started by doing. It's actually there's one tune on that last album you played where I take a Chet Baker scat solo and I've added my own lyrics. And I did that with a few more Chet tunes, and we did a show with tunes that Chet sang, including my lyrics to his scat solos, and some different settings of the David Udolph came up with some different settings of some of the songs that he's well known singing. So the idea is that I'll finish that project, hopefully this spring. But as far as like how it all gets out now, I'm going to have to find that out. I do know the whole environment has changed, that CDs are virtually obsolete, that streaming is really the way people go, that the money for artists streaming is like virtually non-existent, because even though you get paid, you get paid percentages of a penny on, the play. So I'm going to have to navigate all that as soon as whenever I finish this.
Well, all I could tell you is that KCSM will play it. And I think that counts for a lot here in the Bay Area, where you really are beloved, Sherri, which I think is really, really great. But I think that part of what really always makes a great experience, man, really is, the ability to play with people that you dig. I mean, you and David Udoff have been working together for eons, man. Tell me about that relationship. And how did you guys ever meet, man?
Well, through the circus.
Oh, really?
That's not an answer you expected, right?
Not at all, man.
I had a period of my life when I did administrative and management, general management, fundraising, development for a local children's theater company called Make a Circus.
Oh,
and they
great.
had a live jazz band that would play for performances. They toured the Bay Area and Southern California to some extent. And there was always a live jazz band, a quartet. And I left the circus after about 7 years, but I had started doing gigs around town, and I still had friends in the circus. And David happened to be one summer the piano player in the live band. And one of my friends who played trumpet in that band said, Sherri, if you're looking for a pianist to accompany you, you might think of calling David up. I called him up. And that's how we started working together, was through this connection in the circus. And David played for both Make a Circus and the Pickle Family Circus. There were people like Harvey Robb, who you may remember was a sax player in the Pickles. So there was a lot of a lot of integration with the jazz community, the circus community, but not the answer you expected, was it?
Well, I tell you, but it's a great story, man. That is a great story.
It is
which
a great
is really,
story.
really cool. But you got another one that you chose for us, and one that, to be honest with you, that I was not familiar with. This one is called Our Love Rolls On. It's a Dave Frishberg tune. Tell us about this.
Well, one thing I haven't mentioned is that how fortunate I was to be able to see a number of these artists performing live in these very settings that I'm referring to. So I got to see Dave Frishberg perform a number of times, mostly playing solo, but sometimes with a small trio. I got to see Bob Dorough perform a number of times. I met Bob Dorough at the International Jazz Educators Convention, which Herb Wong started, Herb Wong being the father of the Palo Alto Jazz Alliance. I saw Blossom Dearie perform, and I happened on Bobby Troup in a jazz lounge. So I had this experience of seeing all these people. And Dave Frishberg, I have to think I heard him sing this song in one of his concerts, and that's when I just thought, this is just a beautiful tune, and that's what inspired me to learn it. And I like to call it a song about mature love, about weathering the ups and downs of being with someone over time. And it's our love rolls on no matter what happens. Our love rolls on. So, and this is with Bliss Rodriguez. Bliss,
that's
it's a
so
duo.
nice.
Duet recording. I used to work with Bliss a lot too in a duet setting. He is a phenomenal local piano player, so talented. And you'll hear not just his beautiful accompaniment chops here, but he just has a very wide-ranging harmonic concept when it comes to his solos, and you'll be able to hear that as well in this in this intimate
well
recording.
put. Sherri Roberts, our guest this afternoon. She performs Saturday, March 7th at 3 p.m. at Harmony Hall at the First Congregational Church of Palo Alto at the corner of Lewis and Embarcadero in Palo Alto. This is put on by the Palo Alto Jazz Alliance, and if you'd like to get tickets, check out pajazzalliance.org. That's jazzalliance.org. And man, David Udolph's going to be there on the piano, Chris Amberger on the bass, Akira Tana on the drums. It's going to be a great one. With that, here's the voice of Sherri Roberts.
The clouds hang low and the rains do fall, and everybody sings a little blues after all, but our love rolls on. The skies grow dark and the winds do blow, and counting on tomorrow is at best touch and go, but our love rolls on. Our love rolls on. You and I have a reason to try. We'll make it over the hill. We survive, and our love is alive, and our love grows stronger still, and it always will. So it's rain or shine as the fates decide, and even if some trouble comes along for the ride, our love rolls on. Our love rolls on. To try, we'll make it over the hill. We survive, and our love is alive, and our love grows stronger still, and it always will. So it's rain or shine as the fates decide, and even if some trouble comes along for the ride, our love rolls on. night. Oh, our love rolls on and on and on and on and on.
Sherri Roberts, that is absolutely beautiful. That
Thank you.
really is. And, well, I have to say that, for you, you really have become this wonderful example of, artist maturity, working through and now, continuing to find new avenues to explore your art, which I think is really, really cool. And I think that overall that, the ability of some of these folks back in the day, I mean, Bob Dorough, Bobby Troup, Dave Frishberg, Matt Dennis. I mean, truthfully, a lot of these guys never got rich doing what they were doing, but they always seemed to find this satisfaction of performing and creating this artful presentation for people, which I think has always been, one of the great gifts that, artists like yourselves, have of being able to give us these gifts of music that are really, they touch our souls and they really are very important for our own, emotional sustenance, which I think is great. What keeps you going, Sherri?
Sometimes I wonder about that. I think with most artists, performing artists, even when the opportunities do not seem to be presenting themselves as much, if there is anything in your head that just says, I'd like to take a chance and try creating this, or I'd like to work a little bit more on this aspect of my craft, or, just it has to be self-motivation. There's no one, there's not a 9-to-5 job. There's nowhere you have to show up at a certain time to do, except for, obviously the gigs. But as far as the creative process, you just have to want to do it, and you just have to set some kind of goal for yourself to keep it, to keep the momentum going. And that's kind of why, a show like this emerged, or my Chet Baker project. It's like, okay, what can I do? What can I do that will give me something to work towards, that will give me something to develop, that will challenge me, and that somewhere there will be some people that will actually enjoy hearing that or seeing that. And, that's how I approach it. And, yeah.
But I think also that, there's a lot of great camaraderie that happens, amongst, the artists, themselves. And you were talking about, how Matt Dennis and Bobby Troup and all these guys would get together and work together. And then, in a way, that also was quite inspirational to each other, because the thing is that, there was a certain exchange of ideas, and that exchange is perhaps some of the things that have led to these incredible collaborations in this music of jazz.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I referenced it earlier, but Bob Dorough and Blossom Dearie and Dave Frishberg became lifelong friends. They would often perform, they would do certain tours where, say, Blossom would be with Bob Dorough on stage, two pianos, singing songs like Baby It's Cold Outside or something like that. And Dave and Bob, who had a very similar sensibility about lyrics and music, did write that wonderful song, I'm Hip. They did write a couple of songs together towards their end of their life. But I also discovered a song that Matt Dennis and Bobby Troup wrote together because they were Los Angeles based, and everything they did had to do with being in those. There were so many clubs in the whole, Los Angeles is a very sprawling area. And when I lived down there for just a month, and I was driving all over the place just to hear jazz in Burbank, jazz in, Long Beach, jazz in, Studio City. Seeing Dori Caymmi had a residency in Studio City. I'd be plopping myself down there in the front row every time I could get there. But these people made a living that way. And Bobby and Matt Dennis had the access to the Los Angeles entertainment scene, the television shows, the variety shows. Bobby went on to be on Emergency with his wife, Julie London. Okay. So they were really tied into the LA scene. And they did write one song together towards the end of their life. And it was a beautiful song called Learn to Love. What a wonderful idea, right? But I'd encourage anybody who's enjoyed, of course, come to my concert. But you can also look up on YouTube or whatever your streaming service is, people like Bobby Troup and Matt Dennis performing live, recorded live, for these little intimate audiences in these clubs that dotted the whole Los Angeles area. And Matt Dennis had a surprisingly good voice. Of all of them, he actually had a very legit voice. But he wrote songs like Everything Happens to Me,
right,
which I sing there, at the concert. Angel Eyes, The Night They Call It a Day. He wrote very famous songs for Tommy Dorsey and Frank Sinatra. But you can tell when you're asking about what keeps you going, my idea for the show is that what kept these guys going is they just loved to sing and perform themselves. They loved being musicians. They loved taking their own material, which other people may have made more famous. Dave Frishberg wrote Peel Me a Grape. Anita O'Day recorded Peel Me a Grape, among many others. But they really had this drive to themselves be in front of these audiences, and they were mostly small audiences. They were mostly club audiences. But that is what's fascinating to me, and I encourage everybody to to look up recordings where you're hearing these artists sing their own works, because a lot of them are live recordings, not all, but you can really get a feeling for the milieu and what their lives were like as working musicians, just, creating and then presenting.
Oh, that's beautiful. Our guest is Sherri Roberts. I do want to remind you that you are listening to KCSM, San Mateo, San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, and Sherri will be performing this coming Saturday, March the 7th at 3 p.m. We're at Harmony Hall at the First Congregational Church of Palo Alto. For tickets and information, you can go to pajazzalliance.org. That's pajazzalliance.org. But you've got a great band, Chris Amberger, the legendary Chris Amberger on the bass, Akira Tana, equally legendary on the drums, and Dave Udolph, man, you couldn't ask for a better trio to accompany you. And you chose a selection with these wonderful musicians with you.
Well, with Akira and David, both, unfortunately or fortunately, I have a different bass player on this recording, Harvey S. But this was my last recording, now almost 10 years old, called Anybody's Spring. And I think we're going to do the title cut. Is that
exactly right?
Yeah.
It's Anybody's Spring.
And Akira and David are on this, and as well as a beautiful guitar player, Cheryl Bailey,
a great guitar player,
who we met through Harvey. And I like the fact that we had some spring weather last week, so maybe this is a good one to go out with to let everyone feel the spring that's coming.
And it might lead us on to some spring weather this week, I hope.
I hope
Which
so.
I think will be cool.
I hope so. Well, it's been such a pleasure.
Well, it's great. And right now, though, we do have the opportunity to be able to give away a pair of tickets. And if right now, I always ask the guests to pick a number between 1 and 10, and that number caller will be the lucky ticket winner.
6.
All right, you heard it, folks. If you are caller number 6 at 650-524-6960, you will be in the house this coming Saturday, March the 7th at 3 p.m. at Harmony Hall at the First Congregational Church of Palo Alto. But you got to be caller number 6 at 650-524-6960. That's 650-524-6960. And caller number 6 will get those tickets. So good luck to you. And again, that's 650-524-6960. And hey, good luck to you. And with that, Sherri, I want to thank you for coming through. Anything you'd like to say in closing?
Well, just that it's been a super pleasure talking to you again and seeing you again, Chuy. And I really appreciate you and KCSM for keeping all this music going and supporting artists that perform it.
Well, you keep doing it. I'm looking forward to that next album.
Okay. You know you'll get a copy.
Right on. Love you, man.
Love you, too. Balance your budget, rattle your brain, trying to figure capital gain. Is it a problem getting along? A mathematician you know could be wrong. You think that money is everything, and yet it's anybody's spring. Go make a fortune, become a king, still it's anybody's spring. And if you flash a bankroll, do you suppose the brook would care, or that a rose would say there goes the millionaire? It's more than diamonds around a ring, it's anybody's spring. You may be born with a silver spoon, but it's anybody's moon. You couldn't buy a ticket to hear that first robin sing. It's free because it's anybody's spring.
You think that money is everything, but it's anybody's spring. Go make a fortune, become a king, still it's anybody's spring. And if you flash your bankroll, do you suppose a brook would care? Oh, that a rose would say, there goes a millionaire. It's more than diamonds around a ring. It's anybody's spring. You may be born with a silver spoon, but it's anybody's moon. Oh, you couldn't buy a ticket to hear that first robin sing. It's free because it's anybody's spring. Oh, it's free because it's anybody's spring.
Oh, I love it. As the great Jerry Dean at K-Jazz used to say, spring has sprung, the grass is riz, I wonder where the flowers is. But that's a good one right there. It's Anybody's Spring, a wonderful tune by Jimmy Van Heusen and Johnny Burke, sung by the wonderful Sherri Roberts, who again will be performing this coming Saturday, March 7th, 3 p.m. at Harmony Hall at the First Congregational Church of Palo Alto, corner of Lewis and Embarcadero. For tickets, check out pajazzalliance.org. That's pajazzalliance.org. And a tip of the hat to our wonderful friend Harvey Midler for all that he does for the Palo Alto Jazz Alliance. This is going to be a great show, and I want to congratulate our lucky ticket winner, Bipin, out there in San Francisco. Bipin, thank you very much for tuning in to Jazz 91 today. Man, it is just totally great. So right on. And Sherri, again, thank you for being here for Jazz 91 KCSM. With that, let's continue with the music, and here's Bill Evans.